are live.
Good morning. Welcome to the March 25th, 2026 meeting of the Commission on Ethics and Lobbying and Government. Before we begin, I'm going to ask Executive Director Berlin to tell us about the logistics for this meeting.
Thank you, Chair James. This meeting is being held pursuant to notice and in accordance with provisions of the state's open meetings law and executive law, section 94. Both the conference room at the Commission's offices in Albany at 540 Broadway, as well as the conference room in the Commission's office at 25 Beaver Street in Manhattan, are open to the public during public session. Public session is also being live streamed, and the link can be found on our website at ethics.ny.gov. Note too that Commissioner Austin is participating in the meeting remotely by video conference pursuant to Public Officers Law, section 103-A, the Commission's rules and resolution to remote participation on account of extraordinary circumstances. And I can state that pursuant to Executive Law, section 94 for sub H, we have a forum for the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Director Berlin. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes in the public session of February 25th, 2026. Are there any corrections? Not hearing any.
I like that sound.
Not hearing any corrections. I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes. Mr. Harris, second by Mr. Drumwager. All in favor? That's unanimous. The next item on the agenda is the report from staff, beginning with an operations update.
Thank you, Chair James. Yes, thank you. The operation update is under the agenda for the meeting. As we've been doing for the past couple of meetings, for the sake of time, we'll be very brief and go through the operations here. First, let me ask, were there any questions? Just if there's any questions about the operations.
I guess with respect to the ethics includes
Yes.
miscellaneous, what are some of the type of things you get on miscellaneous? Obviously not all.
Michael Sand, our Director of Ethics.
I'm sorry, we couldn't hear the question.
The question is the miscellaneous category. We talked about it a little bit before. What goes into miscellaneous in the ethics operations report?
Not all of them, just
Miscellaneous can include inquiries such as how to go about applying for an outside activity. For example, we don't put that in the outside activity category because it doesn't result in a letter. It's just providing guidance on how to go about seeking approval. It can also include requests involving honoraria, financial disclosure, and also sometimes the ethics unit gets lobbying inquiries, and that would go in miscellaneous as well.
thank you. I think on page 3, I think there may be a couple of typos to the calculation. The totals aren't consistent between column 1 and column 4 and 2 and 2. Number submitted by monthly reports.
Yeah, as I was going to say, I think February was not a bi-monthly or CSA clients in the annual reporting period. So the numbers are much lower for the month.
No, it's just that they're not consistent. The
It's
170 added to this.
it's one short, and I think that's just an adjustment to correct for the previous.
And the number of clients submitted and some are the same thing.
Same thing. These are adjustments as we go through.
Okay.
So the numbers will not always line up from month to month. We also update them as we go through. So the previously reported numbers in almost every category tend to tick up. Occasionally the adjustment is down if we find that we've overstated something. So you see those kinds of changes. It's going to say ethics, you will see that the numbers are remaining high. And I think that's an important thing to take note of. We are running ahead in terms of total guidance requests. Cumulatively of last year. Last year was 60%. 2025 was 60% above previous year, and the previous year It was ahead of 2022 by a similar percentage. We're still going up. We thought we had leveled off, but we're seeing an ongoing increase in volume. I will say for the lobbying division, one development during the month is that client terminations are now available on the website. It's an automated function. That's something Carol would have said she looked at that, but that's something she and the group have been looking forward to for 6 or 7 years.
That's great. It's in the lobby application. Now it's just.
It used to require the submission of a form and agency action on it in order to accomplish it, and now it's automated. So it's a big change. It also illustrates how cumbersome our lobbying application is. We'll talk about it more, in a couple of minutes, but it was old technology when it was installed, and it was never complete. So this is something that was part of the original plan in 2019. So it's finally been accomplished. So that's a big deal. Everybody saw that. Financial disclosure, a little bit of an update. That's on page 4. In fact, the numbers have gone up to the 329 failure file notices, as you can see, issued in the month of February. The outstanding number is down to 21. From 329. So it's a tremendous amount of effort by the group to bring that down. Melinda Funk, Deputy Director of Financial Disclosure, and her team will be reaching out to ethics officers in the coming weeks to try to resolve those remaining 21. And if the FDS don't come in, the next step is to issue notices of delinquency. So the warrant getting issued in February. In March, we're going to see some. We'll talk more about trading a little bit later on. Compliance audit and review. The numbers are stabilizing. We're back to the average we're trying to get. We want to be as close to 200 as possible. The plan had been to expand the group. We have been down for the past couple of months. 2 auditors. We have a vacancy in the group. We haven't had another pension person. We will have a new addition to the group tomorrow. So that's a very welcome addition. So we're going to see them go back up, take a little bit of time to integrate the new individual. I'll introduce her at the next meeting when she's on board. But that's a big change. And we do still have a vacancy in that group that we'd like to fill. And that is, unless anyone has any questions, the operation.
Want to give a budget update?
I do want to get the update. As we've been discussing previously, we expect to end the year flat. We're planning to have virtually no surplus in our budget. We have entered into preliminary arrangements with ITS so that we can at least begin the initial steps of moving forward with upgrading some more technology. It's not going to take us very far, but we might be able to take some baby steps toward doing that. And that's the state of the budget now. Unless there are any questions, that's under tab C.
Commissioner Karas, a question?
Yeah,
Yes.
I just wanted to know, and I think what you're saying about ITS may account for it, but it says at the top, cash allowance 8.825 and year-to-date cash disbursement 7.343. So that's like $1.5 million. Are we spending all that in March?
We are going to be spending all of that in March. We have about $100,000 in residual amounts that are going to come through. We have paid $575,000 so far this month to ITS toward the
Okay, so
upgrade. Talking
500.
about-
Now, is that for upgrades or is that for the new system we hope to get?
Exactly. And it's going to be a function of how much funding we have.
So if
it
they
depends on-
allow us to get a new system, that money will be put towards
It,
the new.
you're anticipating the very next item I'm going to talk about. I'll go for the coming year. 2 things. We have requested the same funding for next year, as we have this year, we had a side letter request for $750,000 to help us begin the process of replacing the lobbying application and the public search query, which is part of the lobbying application. It's the way members of the public, general press, can easily access the lobbying, easily, in quotes, because it's a very laborious process to really get. You can get granular data. It's very hard to get collective comparative data. And the system, you can go to the OpenNY platform, where I think we have the largest collection of data of any agency on that platform. If you have good computer skills and the ability to do it, you can do more manipulation of the data. But that's very, very few individuals are able to do that. So that's the public search where we want to replace that. And then the financial disclosure system is even older and more primitive than the lobbying application. That dates back to 2015. That too has never been completed. We talked the other day with ITS about adding an automatic notification function that was supposed to be added in 2015, and maybe in a few months. So if we get the $750,000 on top of the additional money we have, then we can start taking meaningful steps toward replacing the system. We had talked about it before, in conjunction at the request of Division of Budget. We have prepared legislative language to amend portions of the Lobbying Act so that we can raise lobbying registration fees, change the lobbying registration fee payment system so that it's an annual payment going from $200 to $250, and that would be every year. In addition, we prepared language to impose late fees for lobbyists and clients who don't take their ethics training in time, as well as going to a biennial instead of a triennial system for that kind of training. As part of that, we had provided language, and this is why we were involved in making these changes, so that a portion of that funding, $750,000 in the first year, would come back to the agency to cover our technology needs. As of now, although all the language we proposed, with one exception, has been incorporated into Article 7 bills, the portion that would have allocated money back to us was omitted. We have been working with the executive chamber, with the assembly, and with the Senate to fix that. So far, we don't have the fix in place. So the long answer is that we don't know exactly how much money we're going to have going forward. There's also an H300 process in place that, as we understand, got kicked off a year late. So that probably is not going to be actually active in approving technology allocations until the following fiscal year. In the meantime, if we have funding, we at ITS will be moving forward with proposals and looking at a procurement. If not, we'll be looking at making smaller incremental changes.
But that money will be used for either or.
The money, yes, the money that we've moved over is to pay for improvements
I mean, I
going
think
forward.
that's good that we're sort of coming up with a down payment on this.
It's a prepayment. It's all been authorized by both the controller's office and by the division of budget. The money hasn't moved as of today. Will be
Okay,
before the end of the month.
thanks.
But how far we get really will depend on
Right.
what additional funding we get. We have provided under tab the two spending plans. There's actually an additional handout that we've gotten. The figures in the book don't then look like if we don't get a full main budget appropriation. We got cut in effect by VOB by $250,000. The implication of that, if we don't get back, is that instead of going to a head count of 67 or 68, we'll be stalled at 64 and possibly at 63. That means we will have two vacancies in the trading unit. We'll have a vacancy in FDS. We'll have a vacancy in the investigation and enforcement unit. and we'll have a vacancy mentioned before in the compliance audit and review group. We won't have an additional auditor position filled. The one house bills, which you can see here, at least with respect to the allocation, the Senate gave us the $250,000 in their appropriation, but they gave it as a special item, which may mean it will not automatically carry over into subsequent budgets. That's problematic for us because DOD is now wanting agencies when they hire to demonstrate not only that in the current budgetary cycle they have the ability to pay for the position. They want a demonstration that going forward, assuming a flat budget, the agency will be able to pay for that continuing position. Commissioner Evans.
You mentioned 2 vacancies in the education unit.
Yes.
Last week discussed, I thought we had 1 more position we were looking to fill. So does that mean you have to reduce your staff by 1?
No, we're planning to backfill the position that we have a resignation pending. It hasn't,
So,
the trainer hasn't left yet. We'd like to fill that position as quickly as possible. And that's a backfill. We've been able to backfill without any difficulty, regardless of how this works out. We can do that, but we will still have a vacancy in a
Yeah.
training position and in an analyst assistant position.
well, given the goals that we're set to which that we've been ordered to achieve, that's going to be very difficult for the education.
It will be very difficult to achieve.
I mean,
One
plus the
thing,
increased number we're going to be discussing today because of the backlog. That's going to be, that's the reduction in the educational area, I think really hampers our ability to achieve
Correct.
the goals
correct.
outlined by the legislature.
And one thing we will have to address if we don't receive the additional funding is what we do with the funding we have and how we move positions around and how we deploy the money, which is the reason I wanted you to see both spending plans and how they impact really on the personal services side. On NPS, we have stripped everything to meet DOD's request for a flat budget.
So how,
We strip our non-personnel costs literally to the bone.
so as you prioritize, where does the education unit fit in your list of priorities? In terms of cutting, because we've got the biggest cuts. We've got 2,
It's very high.
and and the education unit drives this program.
Yeah, I mean, these are all discussions we're gonna have. And we're gonna have to look at operations. We're gonna have to look at, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. As I said, if you look under tab E, you'll see that the Senate gave us the $250,000. The Assembly did not. We have been in direct communication with the chamber, executive chamber, and with DOD. And they understand the importance of that additional funding or restored funding really to us. And that's one component of what we want, and we do need that. Because otherwise we will be, notwithstanding how the bodies have broken down the appropriation, money is fungible, we will have to cover things like our rent. We have no choice, or licensing agreement, our running costs. We can't reduce those any further, and that's really problematic for us. And as we've explained to the bodies, we had moved $218,000 out of, for the budget that was submitted in the fall for the coming year. We stripped $218,000 out of a budget that was in the range of 1.4. There's nothing left to take out of it. And so we have been stalled in filling positions because of this looking forward requirement that DOD has until we have clarity on our budgets, not just for this coming year, but for the following year.
Yeah.
And so money's going to have to come out of that line just to pay our bills. And that's why we're tightening literally everything up. In addition, we want the money for systems. System improvements will take some of the pressure off on the personnel side. As an
But
example.
I don't get the sense that systems improvement is going to take the pressure off of education unit.
It'll take a little bit of the pressure off, we hope, because we still have continuing work to do on our statewide education tracking system. So, but it's not going to do the training. You're absolutely correct. But if we can take pressure off other units by automating some procedures, the anomaly is these new initiatives are going to suck up personnel time in
Right.
order to manually bill every lobbyist for their second year registrations. It's going to be a manual process. Late fees are handled by a person in the lobbying unit. They're not automatically generated. That's a problem with having a primitive system. So we're looking at taking up the time of 2 to 3 people to provide additional funding for the state fund, which is great. You know, we're happy to be good campers, and we have not historically kept any of the revenue we generate.
Yeah, that's my
And
next
we
question.
generate, varies from year to year depending on the lobbying cycle that we're in. But we're generating over $2 million a year, and the new improvements, the changes
Right.
that are in the Article 7 bills will add about $1.3 million every year to state revenue. We're asking for $750,000 in the first year, and then $375,000 annually for some number of years, not forever, in order to get the systems off the ground.
This
That's a
meeting is
legislative
being
change.
recorded.
For them to,
Yeah, it does. The change of registration fees are set by statute. Late fees are set by
No, I mean,
statute. We will have to implement the late fees for late ethics training regulations that Carol will be proposing if the Article 7 bills are passed.
but that's not my, maybe I'm asking the wrong question. I thought whatever we generate in fees, it goes into the treasury. We don't keep
Thus
it.
far, we had
Yeah.
proposed.
So my question is there a is that on the legislative agenda in order to allocate some of those proceeds to our budget?
Yes, it is on a very specific budgetary legislative agenda.
Okay.
We have, as I said, we had submitted not just the changes in the registration fee and the imposition of late fees for late ethics training by lobbyists and clients. We had also provided in the same statutory amendments, we proposed a provision that would result in an allocation back to us, whether
Got
it
it.
comes through the statute or through the budgetary process. We're neutral on as long as we get the funding.
Thank
You
you.
know, how that works behind the scenes. It's not the proposal, in fact, originated with a member of the Senate who
Right.
suggested last year that we look at that as a way to improve our funding. But again, where we are is Senate, $250,000, Assembly has not included that. We've done in the government's budget. We're working with them to hopefully get that restored, and also to fix the other problem, which not only as it stands will not bring revenue in, will require us to dedicate personnel, someone to do 2 and 3 full-time equivalents to collecting money.
Thank you.
And that is essentially where we stand on the budget. I mean, we'll see what the timing is. We are working as closely as we can with the bodies as they work through the budget building process. It looks like it's going to bring past April 1st. It looks like there's been some change over that. It looks as if that's going to drag on past the end of the month. And then some part of April. And we'll continue working with both bodies and with each other. Was there any other questions? Tab F. Redeem payments, these payments being made today. I won't review them into the record, but in the book, the total just under $19,000. They cover The February commission meeting, the March 11 legislative and education committee meetings, and preparation hours for a number of commissioners for November through for February. And the total year to date, we're running a little bit lower, which is very favorable than last year. Total year to date will be $208,755.64, so just under $209,000. And that will be the end figure for the fiscal year. Within budget for year to date. Last year, we were just above 227,000. So notwithstanding some of the labor intensive things that took place, we are running a little bit lower this year than last year. Any questions? Staffing update, essentially, again, we have a new auditor starting tomorrow. We'll introduce her to the next commission meeting. She comes from the Internal Revenue Service. So she's got a good skill set, matches our needs, very well educated, very highly motivated. And she has relocated to Albany and very dedicated to the public service. So very much looking forward to that. That would be a terrific addition to the group. And we will be, we are in recruiting mode for a new trainer to backfill in anticipation of having a vacancy. So we'd like that to be seamless, so we're not down too late as we move forward. And then depending on how the budget plays, in going back into the program. And that was the report from staff.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the chair report and committee report. So I do not have a report. I believe there are reports from the Education Committee and the Legislation Committee. I don't believe the Administration Committee has a report. So let's go to the Education Committee.
All right, thank you, Chair. The Education Committee met on March 11th, and the agenda items included two discussions. One was a proposal from staff for an ethics training proposal for 2026, and the other was to review our accomplishments against our 2025-28 goals that we had approved last year. Now, as you know, the goal of the education training program is to deliver ethics training to an estimated 330,000 employees. And while about 90% of the workforce has completed at least one training session in 2024-25, roughly 32,000 employees have not. Additionally, up to 66,000 individuals who received training in 2024 did not complete training in 2025. So the Education Committee reviewed and supports the staff's proposal to address this issue. So before I ask you to consider our recommendation to approve, I'm going to ask our Executive Director Berlin to provide details of the proposal.
Thank you. The proposal is under tab G. We discussed it a little bit at the prior commission meeting before it was referred to the Education Committee. As Commissioner Edwards has we have approximately 98,000 individuals, rough count, who did not receive training in 2025, and some of whom, some 30, some odd thousand of whom did not receive training in 2024 either. We looked at it originally. Our plan was to require agencies to have those individuals, in effect, trained twice, make up for at least one of their missing trainings, and then complete training for 2026. As we heard from ethics officers, adding, in effect, another 100,000 trainings to the 430,000, to the 330,000 that they would have to have completed in 2026 was going to pose a burden. They weren't able to train or had not succeeded in training the full 330,000. Adding another 100,000 in effect to that was going to be an impossible burden. Rather than doing that to the system, staff is proposing that agencies to prioritize as early in this year as possible the training of those individuals who missed training last year. Get them trained first, and then we will go on, as discussed at the last meeting, and we'll have a presentation for the commission at the April meeting, work with agencies to develop plans, which may be individualized agency by agency, to ensure that they have the resources they need, they understand the training requirement, and they have systems in place so that we can have assurance that everyone in the executive branch workforce will be receiving annual ethics training as required by the statute. But the first part is to address this bolus of nearly 100,000 individuals who didn't receive training in 2025. Some of them did not receive training in 2020, and get those individuals trained so that we will at least have one training for everyone in the workforce going into the balance of 2026, and then get everyone as best as possible into full compliance with the training requirement. That it's a very heavy lift. And as we've said before, ECRA imposed a training requirement that's really 30 times what here the prior statute required. Commissioner.
ECRA did two things, though. It didn't just increase the number of employees that needed to be trained. It substantially increased the frequency.
Correct.
And I understand there could be strong policy arguments for the broadened scope of the number of workers trained. And we've seen evidence that it has some effect in that the number of inquiries is going up and like. But it seems to me, have we ever looked at you could see the obvious burden of the increased frequency. And has anybody ever thought about maybe amending the statute to adjust that? Because to require annual training, even though it differs from year to year, the question is there really enough value added from annual training, which was a new requirement, to justify what is described as an insurmountable burden for the agencies? When I listen to everything you say, budget's telling the agencies that going forward, they're going to have the resources to pay for all their staff in the out years. It seems to me that as we think about cost-saving measures, we have to do maybe a more complicated analysis of what is it we're required to do? What could we modify in those requirements without compromising the overall efficacy of the program, but yet generate potential savings, not only for our agency, but across the state?
You know, those are definitely factors that we give a lot of thought to. And they're necessary incidents to developing plans for meeting the training requirement. You know, how can agencies adjust what they do? So, for example, the training group met with the group of individuals who are responsible for general training in the OER group. So roughly 60% of the work is overseen by the chamber, the Office of Employee Relations. Used to be the governor's office of employee relations.
That's where technically the governor's office of employee relations.
But it still is. But it's roughly 60% of the workforce to find out how these other trainings are handled and how we can perhaps integrate ethics training into the annual cycle other trainings. Although we have this unique burden that we and ethics officers are bearing, historically, ethics officers have been the primary bearers of the burden of providing ethics training, even under the old requirement. It was just FDS
Sure.
filers,
Right.
about a tenth of the workforce who got that training. Agencies are responsible for 8 to 10 additional trainings every year that have to be handled. Most of those are done online. But all the staff in this room, almost every month, not every month, have to do some kind of training. Some of it's live. The EOC training is live. Sexual harassment training is live. It's online, but
Right.
but it's not on demand. The other trainings are on demand. We watch the same fire safety video. Thank God that person makes it down the stairs and out of the building before being overcome by smoke. And it's great. We celebrate every year when that happens. We take that training. And the idea is that, repetition has some, it's a pedagogical technique, right? Just keep hammering.
Muscle memory.
It is muscle memory. Exactly. We have a lot of expertise in our training group on the effectiveness of training. I don't know that we're at the point where we have enough data or the expertise actually to assess the impact. We do know that the goal of everything we do is aimed at improving the ethical culture of state government.
Agreed. My question just relates to the fact that there is severe budgetary constraints statewide. And my question was simply, have we thought of ways to address it besides just doing the same with fewer and fewer people? It seems to me, maybe we should say, how can we be more efficient in what it is we're doing in the first place? That's the only question.
No, it's a terrific question. I think the perception was among those who decided to impose the annual training requirement that the old system of mandatory training for FDS filers on a triennial basis was not achieving the result that they thought training should be achieving. The metrics they used have not been made available publicly, so don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know, but we think about that all the time. And we're thinking not only about the imposition on agencies and on us, the cost of pushing out the training. We're talking about 330,000 people spending on average of a 2-year cycle, on average, an hour and a half, an hour to an hour and a half in training. When we were talking with one of the big authorities who had to deal with a unionized workforce,
Right.
the cost that they were estimating for that annual training, even the way we commissions approval, we adjusted it, tens of millions of dollars. Not in pushing it out.
Yeah, I think that's making my point, that there's this enormous cost attached to this requirement. And to say that, yes, I understand the legislature did two distinct things, though. They increased the number of trainees tenfold. And agencies that, as you say, are highly unionized, people who don't have access to the state learning management system, all these kinds of things, which is an incredible cost right there. But then you upped the frequency. And that's that. My question is that frequency something where there's some room to continue the goal of the statute of ensuring everybody's trained? They're just, and I think the important thing is that everyone is trained within 90 days of their hire. That's critical, I would think. But it seems to me the annual, the more comprehensive training followed by the refresher, that just seems like something that could yield savings to the state without compromising the integrity of the program. That's my goal. I'm done.
Can I just add to that? You know, it kind of, this is, first of all, I fully agree with your comments. And looking at reducing the number of people, employees that we are required to train is something we probably should look at. It's very interesting. I never thought of it. But on the other hand, but in addition to that, you know, we have in the Education Committee included in our goals for the second round, the need to do research to assess the extent to which the training is effective. And the kind of questions you pose, to me, is rooted in the need to do that. And because of budgetary constraints and the burden on staff, it's been pushed back year after year, including this year. We can't even talk about conducting research because of the budget limitations. But clearly, you know, and I think we need the data to prove to the legislation that we are maximizing the resources that we have to achieve the mandate that's been afforded us. And we've gotten pushback even from this commission in order to do that, not because it's not important, but it's because there are other priorities on staff's plate. And again, we're looking at our budget for the next 2 years, and we're pushing it back for another year because we can't put it in this year's funding. We don't even have enough to hire a consultant to give us an assessment of what we might do in the future. So maybe that's something we should think about as a priority, even though we know how it fits in the midst of the many priorities that the executive director has.
Okay.
I'm just gonna, I think Nancy you both raised a good point. And one thing I was thinking, you know, there may not be, when we get to the point where we can look at this more, there may not be consultants who would know the answer to 1 year versus 2 year of ethics training, but I'm sure there are people who've done work on sort of the diminishing returns of other types of training. And, you know, is there a big difference between 1 year and 2 year? The other thing I was thinking is when somebody joins the workforce in November and within, let's not say November, let's say September, and they have to take a training by December, do they then have to be trained the next year as well?
Yeah.
They have to train within a year. So we're setting up, it's 90
Right,
days.
there may be, you know, it would be interesting to know with smaller tweaks, how much relief we can get and give the agencies, because that's it, to be training somebody in December and then again in, you know, 3 or 4 months later for their regular annual training may be overkill. I don't know the answer to that, but those are the types of things maybe we would want to know the answers to, but I get when money is tight, it's hard to even figure these things out.
But another thing we've done as, you know, as colleague was the communications program that we have now is unlike, I think, the communications program for the prior ethics agencies. And I think, you know, Emily and her team have put out so much more information about what the law requires, that that's something that's new and different that can, I think, supplement the public and the employees' awareness of what's required. So it's not like things don't happen in tandem, that continue to get the message out there.
Yeah, but we have nothing to measure that. It's a good feel.
But we
We have
certainly
nothing to
have a way to
measure it.
measure the cost.
Yeah, but I think that making these cuts and changes without the data to substantiate it, to me, it's like shooting bullets in the dark.
Yes, but pretty soon there's going to be no bullets. That's my point.
Yeah, but I think the legislature needs to be informed in terms of what's being required.
Agreed.
On one end, they want these changes. These changes are, you know, they want us to meet this demand, but we're not getting, not that the legislature has not been generous to us, because it has in comparison to what other ethics agencies have been funded. But clearly, this has been an experiment in terms of a new direction. And there has been a commitment to observe what it takes to make that happen. And that's being played out right now before our eyes. So I'm saying, I'd rather not capitulate and say, okay, we have to cut budgets, we can't afford it. You cannot make these informed decisions without the data to back it. Like, I don't know whether or not it makes sense to have or is cost efficient to have 2 trainings, training twice every year. I have nothing to substantiate that one way or the other. And I just think that for this kind of money that we're investing, we need to really invest in assessing the degree to which it's being effective and implemented in the most cost efficient way.
Well, lots of ideas. To answer your question, we're constantly thinking about this at the same time that we're moving forward as diligently as we can to implement the requirement that exists, and agencies are doing that.
But we're not just
As
thinking, we're deferring research. We're not just thinking, we're making a candid decision to delay the research.
Right.
Okay. Any other comments about the training proposal?
So now that if, again, the Education Committee reviewed the proposal, we'd like to recommend that it be approved. And with your approval, we will go back to staff and ask them to update the 2025-28 goals and objectives in time for the next meeting.
So you're moving that we adopt the
I move that we adopt.
training proposal?
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
And we'll come back with an update at the April meeting of our goals.
Thank you. I didn't, is Commissioner Austin still on the screen? Yeah.
Sorry, I voted yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anything else from the Education Committee?
No, we're done. Thank you.
Thank you. The Legislation Committee? Mr.
Yes.
Calvaro?
Yes. Do I hear a 10th proposal now on the legislative agenda
Yes.
amendment? I guess we need the information first to go back and ask for a change like that, right? A legislative change
Yeah.
in the mandate and training. So the Education Committee also met on March 11th.
Legislative Committee.
Legislative, sorry. The Legislative Committee also met on March 11th. There is a report in the book. Before I get there, I'm pleased to report, based on this, the document in the book, that 2 of our proposals are moving forward. Very importantly, the open meetings law change. I hope that gets picked up and passed. That would help our budget tremendously, I think. And the electronic filing of all lobbying. So that's very good. I'm sure you're happy. At the meeting, we talked about the proposed rulemaking to adopt to codify sexual harassment as a violation of 74(3)D, F, and H. There is a redlined proposed regulatory change. That's.
It's for later in the meeting.
Oh, it's okay. And I think we're moving forward on that, which I'm very happy to report as well. We talked about an alternative process for resolving matters outside of the format for enforcement. And I think we're moving forward a bit on that. Commissioner Karras.
I don't know if, Sandy, if you want to address sort of my questions on that now.
I think those are legal issues.
Yeah.
There were a mix, so that's what I was going to say, where it's, if it's more appropriate in executive session because of the
Yeah.
legal issues, that's fine.
Yeah, we're prepared to
Okay,
address
great.
those.
Great.
And we also addressed an additional proposal to change the voting requirements, which we are not recommending at this time. And I think that concludes our report. So thank you.
And I should add, as I mentioned, they're in the Article 7 bills, our proposal to have ethics training for lobbyists and clients aligned with the biennial registration cycle is in the Article 7 bills. So we're anticipating, as we discussed, that those will be adopted. So we have that alignment taking place, as well as penalties for not completing, for lobbyists and clients not completing ethics training on time. So those are additional proposals that we're advancing.
Any questions? Well, thank you all for your help with
Madam
this.
Chair,
Well, thank
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Well, it wasn't a question. I just wanted to say something briefly on the proposal that I had made. And I appreciate the chance to say something. So this is on the proposal that I had made to the commission about our voting threshold. And since the committee decided not to recommend it, I won't ask the full commission to vote. I do actually think that I have the technical right to do that under our procedures because our committees make recommendations. They don't take formal action. But 3 members of the committee voted against it, which means, and this is kind of an example of what I'm talking about in my proposal, which means that it can't pass. Because even if the other 5 of us all supported the proposal, the general rule that applies in New York State to multi-member bodies is that it is the seats that determine the majority vote, not the sitting commissioners. So in this case, 3 would outvote 5 because we have 3 vacancies, which means it takes 6 votes to do anything. I think that's a bad requirement in general. I recognize, as our staff have pointed out, that is unquestionably the general requirement that applies to New York State bodies. It's not something that's been done specifically to this commission. I do think it's particularly unfortunate that it applies to this commission because it means, because we've had real trouble getting our full contingent of commissioners, as we've never had it in my time here, which means we've always had a supermajority requirement. Usually, in my understanding, supermajority requirements are for exceptional cases, things that are uniquely important. We need a supermajority requirement to adopt our minutes. We need a supermajority requirement to close a case. We need a supermajority requirement to adjourn. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. And I'm not really sure what the rationale would be. I also think it's particularly unfortunate for a body whose appointing authorities are under its investigative jurisdiction. What really concerns me about the requirement is that folks who we're responsible for holding accountable for things can undermine this commission by simply choosing, rather than appointing someone, to appoint no one, which means there are, and I just want everybody to picture this, there are 3 people voting no on everything we do. They're invisible. We can't see them, but they're here voting no. I don't think we should have that requirement. And I'm not going to push for a vote because it wouldn't pass. But I just wanted to say, I think it's a bad requirement we have, and I hope the legislature someday will think about changing it. Thanks.
Well, I'm pleased to report, I think we have one more commissioner coming
Yes.
in, so hopefully we're moving forward to a full complement, so.
Commissioner Bowman?
I too would have, I thought that Commissioner Ayer's proposal was very well reasoned, and we've had the experience of dealing with that dilemma. That it's more than a dilemma. It's a fundamental problem with our ability to act. And I don't know that the public can always understand that. It's not nuanced, but I don't think it's well understood. And it seems to me, we've talked at many meetings about the efforts to encourage those appointing authorities who have not, or nominating authorities who have not yet put up a name. And we're now, what, 3.5 years in? It seems, I remember the discussion about why we don't want, presumably the legislator had a a good idea for why they structured it that way. But it seems to me, if nothing else, I mean, it'd be great if it could pass, but if nothing else, it seems to me if we put forward a proposal like that, that would do more to bring attention to this dilemma, or this conundrum, or whatever you want to call it, that the commission is saddled with. And I think that alone is a reason to include it in our legislative proposal, not to mention the strong merits behind it that Commissioner Ayers has put forth.
Commissioner Edwards?
I would like to add to that. While I agree with some elements of what you put forth, in terms of changes to the voting requirements, I would like to take exception to the fact that it has not been my experience that it's been a barrier. And that I've found that it forces us, at least it's forced me, to compromise in areas where I would not be willing to compromise. And this up and no, the majority rule, I think would have made me uncomfortable in some decisions we've made, some important decisions we've made, because it serves as a leveraging tool to compromise. And I'm one of consensus. I mean, I'm not a, up or down kind of person. I like, if we all walk away feeling good about the decision, it's better. I think the decision making is better, and it's better for the commission as a whole. So I want to put on record that although I agree with the point you make with regard to the voting structure as it's laid out, I want to put on record that it has not been my experience, and that I think that because of our effort to work collectively and the relationships that we've developed among each other, we look around the table and say, okay, we're more open to listening to the other points of view and coming to some consensus around whatever decision we make. And I would not want it to be suggested that without a defense that we have been stifled as a result of this. So I don't think that we have.
Yeah. Can I just add to that
Go ahead.
briefly? I strongly agree with what Commissioner Edwards said. I don't think that the requirement has changed anything that this group would have done, except to make us push for consensus more. And I deeply appreciated that, and my colleagues. I also think that this group would have been pushing for consensus anyway. And in fact, that I've seen this group try to reach for unanimity, even though that's not required under the rule. And it's something that I deeply respect about my colleagues. And so I think my proposal in general would be to change the requirement, but I would be very much open to thinking in a more targeted way about which are the decisions as to which pushing for consensus might make sense. And so a supermajority requirement, not an arbitrary one that depends on how many members we happen to have, because there's no sense in that. It's not like we should only push for consensus when there's less of us, right? That's the current rule. And that doesn't make any sense. But I would be open to saying, well, maybe on ultimate merits decisions, on investigations, maybe there we should have a supermajority requirement to get consensus. I think that kind of strategic thinking might make sense. The current requirement is really just, well, I guess we're going to have to go for consensus now because we have fewer, and that doesn't quite stick for me. But I agree with Commissioner Edwards. It would not have changed, I don't think, the outcome, except that we pushed for consensus more, and that's been something I'm grateful for.
If anything is due that might be suited for the legislative agenda, is that to propose. I mean, I respect the fact that each body has a certain amount of a certain amount of commissions that they have a right to recommend or assign. But if it takes maybe there should be something in the legislature that allows to allow the legislature, for example, to have X number of a period of time to appoint. If it takes 3 years to find someone, maybe there should be an alternative strategy to fill that position. I mean, I don't know enough about it, but why not shift it on the other end? I mean, you're required to pick 3 people. Well, and you've got 3 years to do it, and you can't do it in 3 years. Then what's plan B? Or do you allow to to continue that behavior. Why can't we do something like that as opposed to what you're proposing?
I won't say anymore because I'm not proposing anything.
Well, I think I did propose at the legislative meeting that, trying to figure out a way to, and a time frame within which to, that you waived your right to select. But that raises a whole lot of other questions, and it requires a legislative amendment. So, so it's not that easy to get to. But I guess we'll keep working at it. All right, well, thank you.
I just want to add, there is one more legislative proposal in form that has advanced, and that's to authorize the commission to post the financial disclosure statements filed by candidates for state
Oh,
office.
that's good.
So that's moved as well. This is at 4 of the items, more or less, on our legislative agenda. Perhaps more will advance in this session. So it's been very, very successful so far. It's not over yet.
Well, good job, guys.
Commissioner Austin has his hand up.
Commissioner Austin, thank you.
Thank you. Just apropos of our conversation a moment ago, there is a new leader of the Republican minority in the Assembly, Edward Ra from Nassau County, and we can reach out to him and hopefully he'll make an appointment.
We actually met with him. We met with him 2 weeks ago, I think, Commissioner Austin. So we did do introductions and had a productive meeting.
Great. I know him. We'll talk later.
All right, so
Or I should say of him.
Okay.
the next item on the agenda is proposed rulemaking to adopt amendments to the Commission's outside activity restriction and approval procedures at 19 NYCRR Part 932.
Michael's
This is-
hand.
This is follow-up from last month where we discussed the proposed amendments. We've come back with the 3 proposed amendments that we all agreed to proceed on. And behind tab I are the documents that we would submit to the Department of State, including a copy of the regulations as they will read after the amendments, as well as a copy of the marked up current regulations that will be submitted to DOS and the additional documents that are required with the filing. And this is on for a vote.
It's a vote to commit to rulemaking.
So moved.
What, no, I would, oh, sorry, we can.
Sorry, I
No, we can do that and then in discussion, I can.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second, so we can
Second
discuss
by
it.
Commissioner Carabao, okay. Commissioner Harris?
Yeah, just like, there were a couple things the little technical things. We say policymakers and we cross out the capital N, but then throughout the document, we have policymakers with a capital N. So I
We're
wasn't
changing-
sure.
We're changing the word policymaker to one word.
Oh, we've crossed out the space, but then in the, like, 932 definition, it says policymaker.
Oh, I see that. Yes.
2
Well,
words.
I'll change it.
It's a number of times, so I just wanted them to be consistent. I don't.
All right.
Have an opinion on which it should be.
Okay, I'll make sure that's consistent.
Okay. And then the other question I had in,
Oh, wait, if you
Nine.
look at, I'm sorry, if you look at the second set, the marked up set, that's
They were-
accounted for.
okay, they were both marked up, so I guess that confused me too.
We're taking care of it.
Okay. So, in 932.5B, where we say a head of a state agency or state elected official must obtain approval from the commission prior to engaging in any of the activities listed in A1 through 7 of this subpart. I'm
Yeah.
assuming A1 through 7 are the chart
No, actually, I'll take out 1 through 7. It's just
What?
A. I'll take out the 1 through 7.
Oh, okay.
It's just
Okay,
A.
the
Thank
chart
you.
wasn't numbered, so I wasn't sure what 1 through 7 referred to. Okay, great.
That's because we went back to the chart.
Okay.
At the request of Vice Chair Ayers.
So that's all I had.
Commissioner Carvalho?
Well, I raised this last time, but I'm just gonna raise my objection again. That I just feel like a public official who has an investment property and can't, no one would recommend that you own it in your personal name, and so does an LLC is. I feel like it's almost like an unfair burden on them. If you own it in your own name, then you don't have to report. But if you do that, and not that you don't want to report, but and I also feel like whatever income you make on a rental property is reported or is in your FDS anyway. And if there's a question about, where it comes from or whether you're doing someone a favor or anything else, that it'll come up in that regard. So I feel like it's almost a penalty, and I feel like it's unnecessary, and I don't understand fully the need for it. So I would I probably wouldn't vote for this amendment for that reason.
What specifically you? Well,
That if you're you have an investment property and you're a public officer, a policymaker, and you want to protect your property by putting it in the name of an entity so that you could protect your personal assets and your life and limit your liability, that you have an added requirement that you don't have if you don't protect your property by putting it in an LLC or a corporation. And because, like I said, so then it's reported somewhere else. So it's not like we don't know what income you're making as opposed to report it. So
So you feel they shouldn't be required to make an outside activity?
yes, thank you. Mhm.
Could we ask staff to address the reasons?
I think the reasoning behind this requirement is that if a state employee is engaged in acquiring investment property, they're going to be more engaged in commerce and dealing with vendors, dealing with tenants. And these are occasions that could give rise to conflicts of interest and a conflict of commitment. If they're very busy with the outside investment activity, they might possibly neglect parts of their state job. So I think we believe that agencies have the right to know if their employees are engaged in this type of activity, and that we should know so that we can then give them the guidance that they'll need so they can go forward with that activity while complying with the ethics laws.
Commissioner Carvalho?
So if you show you hired a management company and they're handling this full time, are you excused from the requirement? If that's the issue, is you're not working. I mean, and that's also something that you should be able to, to figure out because of how you're performing in the workplace. If you're, and we do, I guess, monitor email use and like all that stuff. We look at it in a different way. So I don't know how that makes it less likely that somebody's gonna be on the job, or more likely that, or less likely they're gonna be on the job doing their managing agent or their tenancy things. I feel like we should, be a little, I don't know. I feel like there must be another way to figure that out without.
It's a business venture, which is all, and business ventures are covered by the outside activity regs. Business ventures can create conflicts of interest. I'd say potentially very strong ones if their money is on the line in an investment property. I think it's important that they understand the ethics laws.
And again, the purpose of the outside activity regulations is not to stop state workers from being allowed to do this. It is so that the agency is aware and that the state worker themselves is aware of possible conflicts that can arise and to make sure that they are aware of those. So, and because as Michael said, this would fall under a business venture. So that is why it would require approval. The reason that the idea was always, and the practice has been that, there are some people who will rent out, they own a 3-story home and they rent out the basement. We're not trying to say that every single, basement rental has to get approval for it. But something that is a business venture does require outside activity approval.
It's a transparency issue. So that if you're holding the property not in your own name, but rather in the name of some entity you created, it's less evident to the public what the ownership is, and it's less easily accessible to the agency in determining when we do reviews, for example, whether an individual who's a state employee is owning a property, you have to go through another level to divine what the actual owner is. Whereas if it's owned in your own name, even if it is a business venture, there is a level of transparency that doesn't exist when you're using the anonymity of a corporate LLC format for the ownership of the property. And that's been a distinction that's long been observed. This hasn't been articulated as specifically. Remember, there's an exemption too. It's primary or secondary residence. Then it doesn't apply.
Commissioner Austin has his hand up.
Commissioner Austin? Thank you, Evan.
Can't hear you.
Appears to be needed.
And I
Commissioner
am
Austin,
not.
we can't hear you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, I am muted, so that works much better. We have a definition in 932.2 under A, talking about approving authorities for policymakers. And I'm not sure it's consistent with our definition in 73-A sub C with regard to 1 sub C with regard to state officer and employee in terms of a definition there. In J, we talk in terms of policy-making positions, but I just don't see them jiving, and I'm just concerned that it's clear that as to who we're talking about in these various sections.
Michael, are you able to address that?
Well, the definition is for approving authority. And there's no definition for approving authority in 73-A.
Agreed. But go ahead.
We're not sure of your,
That they're consistent.
I don't see an inconsistency. I think, we're defining the term approving authority for policymaker. The definition, there is no definition of policymaker in this document. Policymakers are designated by the agencies.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that satisfy your?
I think that does it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner.
And I should say that matter of the designation of policymakers and consistency designations, the commission does provide guidance to agencies, and we're required to do that by statute, but we don't make those designations. One of the things in the comprehensive review we want to look at is whether there should be more consistency in that system.
All right, so we've had a motion to the amendment, and it was seconded. All in favor? Opposed?
It's to commence the rulemaking.
Right, yes. So it carries 7-1. Commissioner Carabello. In opposition. Is there any new and other business? Okay, so entertain a motion to enter into executive session during the public offices law, section 105, and executive law, section 9411, to address matters concerning employment of personnel, pending litigation, and investigative and enforcement of and other matter that is confidential pursuant to section 94 of the executive law and section 105 of the public officers law.
So,
Commissioner Karas, for a second.
Second.
Commissioner Groenewegen. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, we'll now move into executive session.
You are live.
So we're returning to the public session of the public meeting of March 25th, 2026. I'm going to ask the executive director to announce the actions from our executive session.
Thank you, Chair James. In executive session, the commission discussed matters related to litigation or legal advice. The commission discussed the formal opinion pursuant to executive law, section 94(7)(c). The commission approved two staff executive law, section 94(10)(f) report. The commission discussed potential rulemakings, and the commission authorized steps through several investigative matters, closed 19 matters, and discussed several other investigative matters. In addition, if I may, I did not announce any public session, but I was very pleased to announce now a promotion. Sarah Giacomini, who has been our deputy director of administration, has been promoted to director.
Who's that?
And we're very pleased with that.
It's me.
And Mariana Cadiz will be assuming the position of senior administrative officer in the agency. The division of responsibility has been already implemented. It's working extremely well. Both Sarah and Mariana have been continuing to do excellent work for the agency. The group is working well. We've provided tremendous support in our budgetary work that we're doing in working to tighten up the budget, and whatever happens will be key in the agency moving forward. So I thank both of them and I congratulate both.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Mariana's back. Is she back?
What?
Is Mariana back? Is she back?
This meeting is being
Okay.
recorded.
Who's that?
And thank you
Congratulations
for all
to
the
her.
work you've been doing as a deputy.
Thank you.
Nice.
Is there a motion to adjourn the public meeting?
Someone.
Second,
second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes.